Mitchell Jeffrey Evenson from Wisconsin. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah. Kelly Altman. 75. Yeah.
That's cool.
I was telling somebody today I was conceived on St. Patrick's Day. So my given name is Kelly Nolan, just to make sure my parents don't forget I was conceived by accident in the middle of my dad's junior year of college.
Yeah, he's definitely planned on St. Patrick's Day.
Crack a drink.
Let's crack a drink, eh?
Let's
3,
crack
2, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 4 of Spinal Tap.
Dear girl, I am a doctor. Doctor.
These go to 11.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine?
Did we just become best friends?
Yep.
The skeleton ran out of shampoo in the shower.
1.21 gigawatts. This is a house of learned doctors. You're not a doctor.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yep.
Cheers.
Okay, what do we got?
Cheers. Yeah, so here, let me shameless plug
it.
for an old colleague of ours, Big Watt Beverage Company, which is I think this is the main company, and then their coffee shops are with it as well. I don't know.
They have a few coffee shops, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to sponsor us
So
next time, right?
Yeah.
sponsorships.
Hey, Lee, I'm calling you out.
Coming
The
in.
strongest
Sponsor
coffee
us.
maker in the state of
It
Minnesota.
doesn't cost any money. Just give us coffee,
Yeah.
and we'll give you a shout out.
Legit, check him out. He, we can tag him, can't we?
Yeah. 5 watt.
I'm not sure what a tag is, but I'll figure it out.
Like a hashtag,
How does he not?
I'm kidding.
like
He's
an
our,
app.
he's our
Dog
social
tag?
media guy, and he doesn't know what
Lee
a
something.
tag is.
We'll figure it out.
But
He's
he's
like,
cool
yeah,
because
MySpace.
yeah,
Well, I'll let you do the introduction.
I'm Mitch. No,
Yeah. So,
what's the order? Guest first, main guest.
I think that's only polite.
yeah, it's only polite. Well, to my right, you're viewing. I don't know what viewing angle that is. This is Kelly.
It's Kelly. Yeah.
Kelly
Altman.
aka Kelly.
Got it.
No.
Let's just keep it at that.
So Kelly, introduce yourself for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hi. I'm excited to be here. This is fun. This is new. I am Kelly Altman. I am the owner of the Altman Fitness Gym in Edina, Minnesota, and also a health coach for women, mostly women in midlife. That's kind of my main demographic that I love.
What would you define as midlife?
I would say, yeah, I know,
That's a very
right?
dangerous
I
thing.
know, and I probably shouldn't have even introduced it that way. But like, I think that truly, just over the years, and especially the past couple years, I'm 47 years old. So dealing and helping women sort of in the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s, and helping just sort of through those transitions of perimenopause, menopause, when hormones are changing again, as crazy as they did back when we went through puberty in the first place, right? It's kind of messy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women find themselves in that space where they have to do things differently, but they don't really want to, or they don't
know how.
They don't know how. Yeah, they don't know how. They keep thinking they can do the same things they did in their 20s and 30s, and a lot of their identity might be wrapped up in either being an athlete or training the same way, and we have to listen and pay attention. And so many times these same women in their 40s and 50s, myself included, we're so busy taking care of so many other people and so many other things that we neglect kind of our own self-care, or self-care has gotten kind of a bad rap, and everyone's like, oh yeah, I know, self-care, but like it literally is like, just take really good care of yourself, whatever that means, and through all different ways. So that's what I'm super passionate about.
Not scrolling on Instagram for 2 hours is not self-care.
Totally not.
Well, that depends on
I'm sure you have to have that
Unless you're watching
like
the
you have to have that
podcast.
conversation with
Yeah.
people. Like
I do.
Yeah, an hour on your phone
Yeah.
is not self-care.
Well, and what's really, really fascinating, and this is maybe a sidebar, but I hear we like sidebars, is recently, it's just really interesting because I think I always say, well, Tommy Boy's one of my favorite movies ever, right? And it's
Never
like,
heard of it.
when I always say, like, that's who I am and that's who I care about, right?
The name's Zelensky. I make car parts for the American working man because that's what I am, and that's who I care about.
I am a 47-year-old woman with 4 children running a business or 2, and I care about busy women that are also running households, also running careers and all those things. And I'm not immune to this kind of stuff, you guys. Like, I went into my doctor about a month ago and found out my thyroid's not functioning as well as it should be, right? And they wanted to put me on medication. And I looked at it and I said, okay, I believe in medicine when I don't think that I'm not already doing all of the things that I could be doing for my own health. And I looked at exactly that. When I was resting, I was scrolling on Instagram, right? And you look at things and your brain is constantly going. And so one of the things I've been doing in this season of really taking my rest and recovery a lot more seriously, because here I have numbers saying something's up, right? Of course, there's a reason why you're more lethargic and maybe anxious or having, a little bit more depression, which I've never had any of those things. But there's this part of life where it can get so overwhelming and all of a sudden things aren't working the same way. And I've had to look at, I've been using heart math, which is sort of calming to figure out if you're really connected, with your heart and your brain connected. And there's an app and a sensor that kind of measures your heart rate variability. Per se.
They're going to sponsor us next episode.
Oh my gosh. It is the coolest thing, you guys, because I've tested it out, right? Like I live, right, I teach classes with loud music and high energy and people, and I'm connecting and I love all of that. But when I go home, I have 4 kids that then they're talking to me, they're asking me questions. My husband's like energetic and playing fun music and he wants to raise the vibration. My vibration's constantly up here. And so it is, how do I rest? And when you think, oh, I'm laying in my bed, but I'm looking at Instagram or I'm listening to a podcast or I'm reading a book even, it's not truly getting me connected and calm.
And recharged.
And so I've been using this sensor in this app to kind of put me into test out, how can I sit and be connected to my breath and really truly rest and watch that data show up. And then my kids can be fighting in the other room and it immediately changes and goes to the color that it's not supposed to be when you're connected.
Everybody shot color for the kids.
Yeah, but even I've tested it out by listening to guided meditations, and it stresses me out more because it's almost telling me something else to do.
Oh, that's interesting.
So do you usually pause at those points and reflect on it, or do you kind of like as you learn more about it, you probably are more aware of it too, but that's a whole different topic too. But that's super cool.
Yeah, but I've learned, I've always been a huge, in my practice of coaching women, right? It's all about boundaries, right? We all have to have boundaries with all the things that, and have those healthy boundaries, figure out what they are. But for me, a lot of it is just saying to my kids, you have to leave me alone for 5. I lock doors. I will go and
their
mom
fingers
has
are
to
scraping
sit.
under the door.
It's
like a horror movie.
So, what do you do then? Do you go to your car? But I think it too is about the way we're talking to our kids about it, is to say, this is really important for my health, and having them see me kind of take radical responsibility and have that awareness, because they're concerned about my health. They want me to be around for a really long time.
Because how old are your kids again?
Yeah, so they're 16, 14, 10, and 4.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize you guys had.
I need to be around for a really long time.
Yeah.
So this is important. Cool. But you all think we don't grow out of being little kids, right? Little kids have meltdowns. Little kids go to timeout. You don't give your kid.
We're still little kids.
Yeah, and I think for women, we feel, oh, we got so angry, we lost it, or we feel so resentful, or we have so much to do, or whatever it is. And we don't realize that what we need is to do the same thing we did to our kids, be removed from our environment. And I didn't give my kids iPads when they would go to timeout. I didn't, right? You sit in the corner and you reflect on how are you, and how can you change your state, and how can you get good at changing your state. But you're given an iPad and you just go into everybody else's world. Yeah. And then you start comparing, right? There's some of that. I know for me as a business owner, I look at Instagram, I look at Facebook, and it's oh, so-and-so's running this thing. Maybe I should do this. Oh, this would be a great post.
There's no decompression.
I'm never really relaxing.
I apologize now for Richie's activity on our Instagram, because it probably makes everyone feel bad about their Instagram presence.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Because it's so great?
Because it's so great.
They feel like they're not doing enough.
Wow. These guys are posting like maniacs.
Machines.
They are. They are. Well, I love it because I think it gives a little comic relief. We all need to look on the internet and laugh more.
And here's the thing too, is and this is why we do the podcast, is that we want to produce when you think about producing something, whether it's a class or an adjustment, it should be a gift. That's the way I think of it. Whatever we're going to put out there, it should be a gift. They should see it and be oh, I feel better. That's how I look at it, a gift. And I think that's just, people should just give more, and we would all feel a lot better.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
About something I've been hearing a lot?
Totally.
Overstimulated mothers and fathers. But
Yes.
like, would you describe like what you just told us? Is that just
Totally.
straight overstimulation?
Completely.
Well,
Completely.
overstimulated kids are more likely going to have an attention deficit issue.
Yeah.
Like you think about that, and you had said the carryover into your kids. Like, I don't know your kids. I just met you today,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But your kids are probably,
Yeah.
for the most part, like well-behaved,
They are.
mature humans.
Yeah. They're
right?
pretty awesome.
And I
yeah.
think that speaks to, like,
Except
as
for
a parent,
Jay.
too.
Yeah.
Jay's not regulated.
To be honest, I mean,
Jay.
what's crazy is like, so I come from two like super high functioning parents, right?
Okay.
My dad was like a corporate guy, go, go, go. My mom ran the household for 4 kids. I moved 13 times before I even went to college, right? So like, because of my dad's job, every time he'd get a promotion, we would move. And so my mom took care of all the other things besides the job, right? Moving, packing, getting us into activities, getting us into school, like very high functioning parents. Like I laugh at times that my dad is like Clark Griswold. You'd get on a road trip and you would get in the car at 5 a.m. Nobody had water, nobody had food, nobody had to go to the bathroom. We would just drive. He would drive until like we got there, and we're all like, can we get out? We have to go. My husband calms me. Like he is the calm that I needed to kind of balance me out because I would have the tendency to just go and be run into the ground,
I've seen that in person, like
Yes.
you guys talking together, and he kind of like looks at you and he's like,
You guys, before we...
I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Before
that's
we
awesome.
started dating, I knew him for 3 years. We worked together, and I literally thought he thought I was crazy. I was like,
That's
he thinks
probably
I'm
true,
crazy.
and that's
He
why he
might
loves you.
The right
But
type
I
of
was
crazy.
like,
Yeah.
I really feel like he's so calm that I just need to like dial it back a little. But like, now I know him more.
Yeah.
He's good at being calm when he really needs to be calm.
Sure.
But it's really important for both of us to just raise really self-aware kids with like good emotional intelligence to know this is, when I'm overtired, when I eat too much sugar, when I don't eat protein, when I don't, whatever. Here are the things I feel inside my body, because I think that gets lost a lot of times when we just kind of.
And that's your
keep on
experience as
habits.
like a healthy human.
Yeah.
Do you see that elevated? Do you see other things with like clients that come in? Like that's probably a common theme with women coming in working with you.
Yeah.
Is like, and we talked about this, like raising your awareness and locus of control, like those tools that you can build. Like, what do you see as like common themes with your people?
I think just that, like the just getting into habits, going and doing, focusing on what everybody else needs all the time. And then when it comes time to say like, how are you, or what do you need, or what could help change this or whatever, they're like so not used to even thinking about themselves as much that they don't really know, or they just go to like the low hanging fruit and it doesn't work. Like everybody will say, oh, I'm so stressed out, I probably just need to go for a run. But if you're a perimenopausal or menopausal woman who is not sleeping at night, the very last thing you need to do is go for a run. What you need to do is lay on your floor and you need to take deep breaths for like, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Years?
For 5 years. Yeah.
Anti-running.
But do you know what I mean? Like you do not need to run. And sometimes you don't even need to walk and listen to a podcast. Like it's not that.
That's
like
this podcast.
Yeah, this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Okay. I didn't want to make that distinction.
Listen to this podcast.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
About taking care of yourself, and the immediate reaction for men and women, but we're talking about women right now, is I need to go exercise, right? And so when you see people in the gym, when you're training, they're obviously showing self-care. They're coming there, they're taking care of themselves. But what are some of the things that you see and or like try to instill in them for when they leave that hour, after the hour's over? They have to go home and everything comes back. So like the defenses, the shields, the protection, like what are some of those things that you pass on to your clients?
Can I expand on that too? Because
Totally.
it might tie in. I had a similar question. You had talked about habits. It might tie in like what habits do you try to instill to your people when they leave, when you're not seeing them for the other 23 hours of the day?
I think what I love so much about doing in-person training and like having the gym space is just kind of bringing that awareness again to like getting them in their body first so that they can start to think, you know, oh, does something bother me? And seeing modifications in their training as like kind of like a boundary, you know, almost like if I am not able to do this, right? Like you treat some of our members that might have shoulder issues and just accepting those things so that they don't feel like a failure. Because I think so many times that it is sort of either that I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing it right, or shame or guilt or like all of those things. Like if I could wave a magic wand and just take those two words out of women's vocabulary, having women say, I feel so guilty when, or I feel so bad when I can't like step up to a level that maybe other people are doing. That's the big thing that I want to instill is just kind of like, honestly, pride, and having them feel proud of themselves, having them feel like they have something to celebrate just by coming in and like taking good care of their body, getting in community. And I think sometimes, so many times, natural conversations come about like, what's next? You know, what are you going to eat when you go home to kind of help repair your muscles? Like, now you're going to drink more water throughout the day, right? Remember to prioritize your sleep because your body feels better, right? It's just all of those cycle things of saying you feel better when you're around other people. You feel better when you move your body appropriately for this day, like where you're at, you know, getting them to ask that question. Because if they were maybe doing it in their basement, just even with an app, they might forget to ask, do I feel like I can do that today? Or could today be a recovery day? And feel proud of that because they're listening to what it feels like to move today, instead of being like, nope, today was going to be a running day or a strength day and I've got to power through and it doesn't matter that I'm exhausted.
I would imagine that's momentum that they would build and carry on through other decisions that they're making in their life. Is this something that I should do today?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's like observing your classes and being there like during the training, and like you talking about the community part. I was like thinking in my head, like, it is hard when you teach a group class because everyone's looking around at like who's doing what, right?
Yeah.
Like people just compare like, oh, this person can do 50 pounds over their head. Well, I'm going to try that. Yeah. You know, they kind of get into trouble that way. But I think your presence and your business, your group training classes, like I've seen the chatter that you talk about, like, hey, what are we doing afterwards? Or, you know, it's kind of a nice environment where people feel comfortable sharing. And I think you were talking about a certain type of thing, but I think Nicole, we had those conversations, like, be okay with not doing it this way.
Yes.
And that sometimes you got to hammer that home with people, but once they start figuring that out and like, oh, my expectation is I'm not going to press something overhead today, I'm going to press something this way. So it's like those little points, I think, what you offer to people and what we can, you know, tie our chiro stuff in with people too is huge.
Totally. And I think that, you know, it's in that relationship that you start to understand like what people's motivations are and how to kind of get them from the point that they are currently to where they see themselves going, like efficiently, but also like really safely, like with Nicole, right? The other day, and we were doing a move and she said, she just came out and said it because she knows we have an environment that she can just be vocal. And she said, I can't wait to be able to do that again. And in my mind, it triggers, this is so exciting. Like she's taking where she's at really seriously, not with shame, not with anything, but she knows it's important to rest now and do her, you know, chiropractic and just be more careful so that someday it's a possibility again. I mean, I think that the whole like point of all of that is we just have to be like our advocate. We have to be an advocate for all of the things, you know, if your body's saying you need the physical therapy and the chiropractic and the strength and like all of the things, then go do all the things and don't look at it as, oh, I have to do all of these things. Like I get to do these things. These are a gift. These are a privilege. These are people that are using, you know, their talents and their expertise to help me get better so they can do that move someday.
I love that. It's cool. Now, when you meet with somebody, like some new gym member comes in, what's the typical process? Like, are you meeting with them one-on-one? Are they just coming to a class, like, in the community? Like, what's the typical?
Our classes aren't huge. I don't want huge classes because I want everybody to feel like they're getting that attention and they're not just following along with the instructor's workout. And then it helps me have an opportunity to know some of the lifestyle stuff, right? Like, because then our members do stay after class and they're like, okay, I can't bring myself to drink plain water. What do I do? And I'm like, do you want me to be nice or do you want me to say what I would say to my children?
Drink their water.
It's like you telling me you don't like to breathe. You know, like, do it. Just do it. You're just going to do it, right? So I think that when somebody comes in, I just want them to know that how we set ourselves apart. And for me, it's like, I love running group classes, but for me, it's all about the holistic health, you know, it's not only the exercise. I want to know what people are doing in all of the pillars of health and see how I can get to know them so I can help them the best.
Do you want to go through your pillars? Because that's kind of a new thing, right? Or it's not new, but you kind of were telling me about that.
Yeah, so kind of the 6 key focus areas. Let's see. Thinking, which is my favorite, truly.
I don't like that one.
I know. And what's crazy is like when I do group programs and I say, which pillar do you need the most help on this week? They're all like thinking. I only know stuff on, and breathing. Okay, so thinking, breathing, sleeping. A lot of my clients need help sleeping as well. Eating, drinking, and movement. And so for so long, you know, probably 10 years or so, maybe, 8 years, we ran...
Bring the mic.
Oh, yeah. We ran a gym that was only the movement. You know, it was only the movement. And back in the day when we first started, boot camps were very hot and trendy, and it was how can you come in and lose the most amount of weight, and we do these 28-day fat loss programs and all of those things, and it was great for learning and it got people really excited. But over the years, the entire reason I became a health coach to work with people one-on-one, more on, you know, their own stuff, is you just see people go off and then have no idea what to do. And it was that shame and guilt of saying, oh my gosh, I keep taking off and putting on the same 20 pounds, that I started to say, this is not about a month. This is about your whole life. This is about health. This is about nutrition. This is about how you want to function. This is about what it's doing to you mentally. And so I completely stopped running those programs. And so now when you focus on those 6 pillars, right, how you move is super important. And it can be mobility, flexibility, strength, cardiovascular fitness, right? It's not just one thing.
Right.
But then when you think about eating, it's not just one thing either, right? It's what you're eating, how you're eating, why you're eating, right? Maybe who you're being when you're eating. You know, are you eating just because you're cleaning your kids' plates, or eating because people are just offering you things, or just because it's there, right? Like there's several different parts of eating. And then we all, when we think of breathing, everyone's like, oh, I do that. I'm like, yeah, I did it too, like this. We got it. We're going to go to the next thing. It's okay. We're going to hockey. We're going to dance. We're going to go teach a class, you know?
Yeah.
And it's important.
Breathing's huge.
Huge.
I mean, you look at everything. I mean, we see it all the time. You know, if people are breathing like that, like they're going to have upper back, neck pain. You know, their pelvic floor is going to be not great either because of that link with that. And I'm sure you see that quite a bit too, as far as like pelvic floor rehab, which is a big...
Huge.
You know, a big thing lately.
Yeah.
You know, in the last number of years. But yeah, breathing's huge with everything.
My goal with you being here is to give people like an idea of like the experience. So people come in for a class usually, or they have a consult with you, correct?
Yeah.
And then what are the next steps? Do you have like a discovery session? Do they like journal stuff for you? Like what's the...
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, there's really 2 things, because I have a broader audience than just even in, you know, with the gym, right? So the gym is a component, I would say, of everything that we do, because we have a whole online component too that really is my Stronger in 6 program. And that's the one that incorporates it Stronger in 6 because it includes strength training, but I want people to be stronger in all 6 pillars, right? So it's 6 weeks, but it's also 6 pillars of all of those things. Because if you can show up as stronger physically because you're actually focusing on strength training, and then all of the other components, right? That's a whole online. But most of the time, yes, it can be an online discovery call, you know, where we just talk about, you know, where's the disconnect? Like, you know, what are you doing now? What do you envision for your health in the future? Like, how can I help you, right? Because I work with people either one-on-one in the gym for this. The training component is a little separate from my health coaching, and then I've got the online programs. But really it's bringing people into that community. And then we have some online office hours where people come and they talk because maybe they couldn't stay after a class if they're, you know, a member at the gym, and we dial in and we all just talk about what's going on.
And that's a group setting, right?
That's a group setting, yeah, on Zoom. And I think that's one of my favorite things.
And
because
that was a COVID thing, right? You started doing that because of COVID?
We started doing it because of COVID.
Thanks,
yeah.
COVID.
Yeah. And it really held on, right? Because then you can get to people who maybe can't make the same class times, but they have questions or they want to feel like they're not alone. So I would say a lot of it goes with me connecting with people one-on-one because I want to get to know them. And then I want to draw parallels. I mean, I think that when I've been thinking about why am I so passionate about building community is because I grew up roaming around all the time, right? Like I didn't grow up with the same friends. I was always the new kid. And when we started the group fitness, it was like, wow, look at this. Like through fitness, we can bring people together and they're moving and they're laughing or they're complaining about not liking to move or they're so winded and like it brings people together, those experiences. And I think as women, specifically in the age range that I'm doing is a lot of times perimenopause, menopause, those changes aren't being talked about that much. So women feel maybe, why am I feeling crazy? Why am I trying to, eat low carb and keto like I did when I was in my 20s and it's not working anymore? Like, why not? Why am I trying to run 5 miles every day and my weight's going up and my hips hurt, And it's like, we need spaces of women that can come together and talk about these things and feel normal and realize there's a different way to be. And the way to be is not angry that we're going through changes. Right. It's excited about what can we bring into our lives. That's
excited
really
not to run anymore. That's a great thing to be excited
totally,
about.
Yeah.
So anti-run.
And hopefully not running after children anymore, like little kids. So
yeah. No, I think that's very interesting because we as chiropractors, we experience that too. Like women come in, they're like, well, geez, I feel like garbage and I can't say why, like what's going on.
Totally.
I personally boil it down to 3 things, whether it's physical, mental, or chemical stress. We can help people with the physical part by adjusting them and getting them moving better. But a crucial conversation is about, okay, what are you putting into your body?
Yeah.
Good or bad, or lack of good things, too much bad stuff. And then mental, like that self-talk that I think a lot of people get into trouble with. But I think as a female perspective, like those are some huge pillars to hit, because I know personally if I'm thinking what I'm thinking about myself on a day-to-day basis, because that's what we do, I can't imagine what moms with all this worrying about everybody, So I think that's a huge thing. What do you do on that topic? Like, what do you tell people to try to plug into their brain a little bit, like in regards to that self-talk? And
I think, in regards to self-talk, I think we all just need to start getting focusing more on what we're doing really well and giving ourselves a break, I really think that, a lot of grace and a lot of, just realizing that importance of rest and realizing that we can ask for help and it doesn't need to look the way maybe it used to look or that we think it needs to look.
I literally just had this conversation 30 minutes ago.
Really?
With a new patient. Young girl that just had a baby 4 months ago.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, hey, like, just so you know, like, you gotta give yourself a little credit.
Yes.
Like, you just had a baby.
Yes.
Like, this is gonna take some time, and
yeah,
that's
but it was
okay.
4 months ago.
Like,
yeah.
And,
Got
yeah,
stuff to do.
like,
And it is interesting because I think for women in general, like when you become moms, right? And when you're seeing social media, it's like we all get very caught up in paying attention to what everyone else is doing. And then we don't know how to figure out how we're doing.
Yeah.
And we just compare it.
Right. Comparison is the thief of happiness.
It is. Wow. Yeah.
I like that one.
Were you reading a book?
You're like a miniature Buddha.
It's on the back of this big
Snapple. It's under a Snapple can.
Yeah, I don't see that
on the lid.
I have a selfish question, but I think it ties around. I mean, it's not selfish. It's how do, so you're sitting in a room with a bunch of men.
Yeah.
I would say on the level of, feminine men that are aware of their femininity and the strength that brings as a male.
Yeah, hold on.
Crush.
What
What did you say?
Where's the duct tape? Let's crush it, bro. Sorry, Richie. Please
Anyway, just trying to have a moment.
Yeah, it's not here. Wrong crowd.
No, now I'm dying for the
How
rest
much
of it.
TRT are you putting in there?
Enough.
Anyway, so as a partner to a female, and you're sitting with others that have partners that are female, how can we going through this 40 to 50-year-old age now in the next 10 years? What can we do? You know, do you think about that? Do you talk to your clients about helping? I don't know, coach their men, but like, what are some of those things that we can like honestly help and support? I think listening, but like beyond that, maybe.
That was a
non-selfish question. That was a very selfless question.
I know.
I appreciate you asking.
I wrapped it in. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think it's a great question, because I feel like a lot of my job is in teaching my clients, teaching women how to ask for help in a way that it gets heard, right? Like,
oh man, that's difficult.
It is.
I heard a little stat where like 95% of what we hear, and you have ran into this with me, because we're work wives, like we're our spouses at work.
I watched your Instagram.
Like, I'll hear something and I'm like, it totally isn't what they said, and I'm sorry to my wife.
Yeah.
And Dr. Zach.
Yeah.
Because I get that. It's like, how do you speak to be heard? And it's like hard for me because I'm like literally listening to you, but it didn't plug into my brain. So
yeah. Well, and also I think like when women need help, right? Like when a woman is overwhelmed and stressed, right? They walk in after a days of work and the house is a mess, the kids are going crazy, a million things. Like that's the thing about women, right? We've got kind of that ticker in our brain, like everything needs to happen. And a lot of times what happens, maybe, if it's a feminine and masculine, like just, the way we operate a little bit more is the men will think, okay, so to be helpful, I just have to ask her, what do you want me to do? But what a woman really wants is for you to already know what needs to happen, right? We don't want to be the carrier of all the things. Do you know what I mean? Yes. Like, because then the husband says, well, what were you thinking about dinner? And like, I'm like, I wasn't thinking about dinner. Like, I don't want to think about dinner. Like, I want somebody else to think about dinner.
So
like,
don't be Ray Romano.
Yeah, right?
I'll make a deal with you. I throw this out, and you can call me an idiot.
Deal. Right? I mean, but it's that we don't want to be truly the keeper of all things, because we have to realize that it completely exhausts us, Yeah. So we want somebody that already knows, like, this needs to get done, so I'm just going to do it, right? Totally. Because it's exhausting keeping track of all the things.
So the masculine side, like my brain thinks, like with Michaela, it's like, well, I don't want to make a decision and it to be like off-putting because that adds to it. So I think like her and I, like that's where we kind of, that's our junction. I'm sure you have that as well.
I'm just laughing.
Yeah, because it's like I care about her and I know she's stressed about X, Y, and Z, and I know she wants me to make a decision. I've been working on that kind of a little bit. Yeah. And so what would you, is like a strategy for me is like, I know I could pick from these things and just make that decision, like historical data. I'm like, okay, these are options. Let's move forward with one of those.
What's the least likely to be the mistake?
Right, exactly. And I would just say, just ask, I was thinking about doing this. Is that great? Right? Like, then it just is like, and if she says, nope, absolutely not, I'd like this, then right? But you've at least presented one, right? But when there's so many options, then it can become overwhelming because we have so much in our head, right? But the other thing I was going to say is, I think it's so important for all of us in relationship to realize that when we get overwhelmed and we have all these things in our head, that we can snap and say, would you just, do this? And like, we have to ask for help in the way that the person will actually hear it and want to be of help for us, right? Like, I have teenage daughters, and there are days where one of them wants to wear the other's, sweatshirt. And the way they ask is like so inappropriate and awful. And I'm like, what is the end goal here? You want her to say yes, correct? So like, why are you being so mean?
God, I love your skirt. Where did you get it?
It was my mom's in the 80s.
Vintage. So adorable.
Thanks.
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
It's the way we approach asking for help that like, we don't want to all of a sudden put up our partner's defenses, right? Yeah. You want to ask in a way that you can be heard. Maybe you want to express your feelings and say, I'm feeling this way. And if you could just do X, Y, and Z, that would really help alleviate the stress. But we have to come from a place of calm, right? We can't erupt.
Heart at peace. Yeah.
We need to breathe first.
Yeah. So how do you get to that calm? What's your coaching?
Honestly,
strategy?
I believe awareness, right? I think doing something for yourself and realizing when you're heightened and that might be the time you might want to do the thing, but we got to take a break. You got to put yourself in timeout and you've got to come back to, and you've got to think about what's the end goal, right? Because if you're doing that with like eating and you're just eating anything that sounds good and then you're upset that you don't have the health or the vitality or the energy that you want, you're not looking at what's the end goal. Like, why did I eat that thing? But if you're wanting help, but you're just going in and like screaming and yelling, you're not focused on the end goal. You just want to vent.
So building those goals is...
Building the goals, like knowing what you want at the end of it and being really clear, and then like kind of backtracking and say, so if this is what I want, what's the best way I'm going to get it?
We're all little kids just trying to get what we want still. And
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I want to jump in for a minute because we have a couple minutes left. I would prompt, what's a gift that we can leave our wonderful listeners, all 34 of you out there?
I mean, I liked what you 34?
Soon to be
Seriously?
35, I bet.
Growing.
It's growing.
Yeah, be careful.
I'll subscribe.
I like what you said about like
35.
taking a time out, because I've done that for a number of years where I'm just like, I need to go downstairs and take like 5 minutes to just like be in my thoughts, and then I'm gonna come back and be like good.
Maybe.
So I like that, and it goes back to like what you were saying in the beginning of like, hey, you got to be aware, and you need less noise to be able to do so.
Yeah, I think doing less to accomplish more is something that I've been trying to do, like saying no to things, like just putting up those boundaries for myself, because I know myself, if someone asks me, like if a neighbor's like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to lift a couch out of my basement? I'm like, yep, let's do it. And then I'm like, why did I say yes to this? So I mean, for me, and I don't know if this is male, female type of thing, but like coming from being a helper, like that's what I do. We probably strain ourselves a little bit too much trying to help people when we should like step back and help ourselves and reflect on that. So,
you know, I think a lot of us maybe grew up with parents sometimes that would just say, because I said so, right? Like that was the end of story.
That's
like,
not a reason.
Why? Because I said so. And they just didn't want to explain it. And I think that what we've learned, you know, through the power of communication and all of those things is if you just explain it to people and it can become, you know, valid, then they're going to understand and then they're going to take that forward. So if I say to my daughter, I needed 5 minutes. It helps me come back. I needed to breathe. You know, sometimes when you get upset and you just can't, you're not right in the brain. Sometimes I get that way too. Like this is a normal thing. We all get this way because we all grew up thinking our parents had it all figured out, and now we're parents and we're like, crap, I don't have it figured out.
That's why they bought pizza all the time.
Like, just like talk about it, right? I'm just huge on like, you know, my favorite sayings for like all of us as parents is the very, you know, we think that we have to sign our kids up for all of the things and do all the things and have them go to all the things and whatever, but the very best gift you can give them is be the happiest version of you. Like that's it, right? Like
I got little chills,
right? And it's like, I think that that's it, because we spend so much time thinking like, are they okay? Are they okay? Well, are you okay? Right? Because if I'm okay, if I'm super happy with like who I am and how I live my life and what I'm teaching them and what we're talking about, then they're going to be also.
Because their world is you.
Yes.
It's not that.
It's all the modeling.
It's there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, that was awesome.
That's good.
Man, I think we should probably wrap it up, but with the intention of if you would ever come back again.
So
I would totally come back.
How do people find you?
So I'm on 2 different places on Instagram, but I'm not a very good poster. But I'm at kelly.altman for my health coaching and at Altman Fitness for the gym.
Sweet.
And people can just like Google you. And
totally.
Like those numbers
I have both websites as well.
If they want to do a class or meet with you, is that the best way to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. If they want to come in, if they're local and they do in-person training, then then that's amazing, and that kind of gets them into the community and gives them a place to feel really supported. And then I do have the online community of, you know, women kind of talking about all of the health.
And
struggles and bonuses and all
to
that
add
stuff.
to that, men are invited as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
The gym is not like women only by any means. We have a thank you and all
and
that
your space
stuff.
is updated too. It looks pretty badass.
Yeah, and our space is awesome. But we do have a few awesome men that I hope never leave. So it's a great space.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a wrap on the tap.
Cheers.
Wow.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Kelly.
You got it.
Yeah.
This is a house of learned doctors. You're not a doctor.